Have you ever had this experience? Have you ever been to a personal growth event, retreat, seminar, something like that, and maybe it's a business networking event, something like that. You go to this event, you have this amazing, transformative experience. You go back home with all these plans about how you want to integrate what you got out of that event into your lives. You're, connecting with people from the event, and you start falling back into like your daily patterns. You start losing touch with the people that you went to that event with. And maybe 3 to 6 months down the road, you kind of end up right back where you started, feeling like, well, why did I even go to this event if I wasn't going to take what I got out of it and integrate it into my life in some way or another? So I have been to countless events and programs and retreats and workshops and seminars since I was a kid. I've had this experience over and over again. I've been to the event, had the transformative experience, met amazing people, and then I would go back home. I would fall back in old patterns. I would lose touch with the people that I went there with and just end up right back where I started. I eventually started feeling like there was something wrong with me, like maybe I was broken. I just didn't have the motivation that other people had to actually be able to make actual changes in their lives. And eventually, I started feeling like maybe the events are my personal growth practice. So every 6 months, every year, I would go to another event. I'd have another amazing experience. And then I'd go back home into my daily life. And then 6 months later, I'd go to the next one. I became one of those people that like chases that event high. And that became my spiritual practice. And it took me a while, but I eventually had an experience that completely changed my perspective on that whole process. The first one that I had was in high school. I was at an event for the other kids in high school. It was one of those like weekend lock-in type events where you just connect with a bunch of other kids from different cliques and different like groups and actually connect with them. And that's what we did. I got to connect with people I never would have talked to before. We had this amazing experience. They did something at that event that I have never seen before and haven't seen since. They did, at the end of that event, they did a reintegration process where you kind of reflect back on the experience that you had in the event. You look forward and set some intentions about how you want to show up differently in school the next day or the next time you meet these people in the hallway. And the rest of my high school experience was completely different because of this experience. And it was because of those intentions that we set during that last part of the event. I would, go up to people that I never would have talked to before. Like we all had all the different cliques. We had like the goths, we had the stoners, we had the jocks. We had all these different groups of people, the band kids. None of them would talk to each other normally. But because we had all had this shared experience and we all had set intentions about how we wanted to show up differently, we all had that in common. So I could pull aside some kid from the jocks and connect with them about this weekend experience. And it completely changed my high school experience. Flash forward a few years. I went to another event that, again, was just like all the others. It was an amazing weekend retreat. But then afterwards, they plugged us into a 10-week course where we actually took what we got out of the event and started creating action steps that we could start building and tracking these steps to create a plan for taking a goal from that event and actually accomplishing it. And I had a pretty big one. And when I went to this 10-week course, by the end of it, I had accomplished that goal. And that was the first time that had ever happened to me, where I'd gone to an event, I had a goal from it, and I was actually able to accomplish it afterwards. And again, I was like, wow, this is amazing, but it was a one-off, And I didn't think a whole lot of it. I just went back to my keep going to retreats experience. So flash forward again, maybe another, till I was about 30. I had a third experience. And this event was, again, like an incredibly transformative weekend retreat, bringing a whole bunch of people together, having a really physical, emotional experience. But then afterwards, they put all of us into weekly support groups where we were actually connecting with the people from the event every week. We had our little group of support. We would connect every week. We would talk to each other. We would talk about our successes, our failures, our accomplishments, what we need support around, how things are going from the event, you know. And having that support system allowed me to finally create lasting change in my life in areas that I had never been able to before. So completely changed, like dating, health, relationships, exercise. I learned to express myself in ways that I hadn't been able to before. And these became permanent changes in my life. So I finally started putting it together. And I realized the experience isn't the end of the process, it's just the beginning. The most important part is the follow-up, right? You have this amazing event, this experience, it's a catalyst. So the most important part of actually creating that and making it permanent in your life is the follow-up. And I started looking back at all these different places that had a follow-up system, and I realized that when you put them together, it's a complete formula for creating lasting change in your lives. So why is this follow-up process important? So I'm going to throw a few statistics at you. 96% of people who set self-growth goals for themselves fail at that. 80% of New Year's resolutions are abandoned by February. I'm sure all of us have a bunch of New Year's resolutions that we just never even went back to. What I've realized is that most events, programs, personal growth, even in other different areas, they have no adequate support system to help their participants after the event is over. So think about it like if you're trying to learn a new language, right? You can go about it you can go about it a number of different ways. You could maybe, like back when I tried to learn Turkish, I got a bunch of CDs on tape and I just practiced them a whole bunch. It was great. But you can learn the language, you can do that repetition, you can try to like pick up all the different phrases, or you can actually go to that country and connect with those people and have a conversation with them. So it's the difference between like rote learning versus immersion, where you're actually immersing yourself in that culture. That language is going to stick with you so much longer than if you're just practicing on your own. And I realized that the key to all of that is creating as many opportunities in your environment as you can to create anchor points. So you're building habits, you're integrating the change that you want to have in your life into your day-to-day experience. You're making changes in your environment, how you talk to your friends, the conversations that you have with people. The more you can integrate the new change that you want to have in all these different aspects of your life, the more likely it is that it's going to stick. And that is what I realized is the key to creating lasting change. And that's what all of this is about. So when I first was doing all of these retreats, having that experience, I realized that this formula didn't really exist. It existed in pieces. It had been done in different pieces here and there at different events that I'd been to, but no one had ever put them together into a complete formula. So that's what I want to impart to all of you today. This is a complete formula for creating lasting change in your life. And it applies to any experience that you have, where you've got a lot of people that you're doing something with, a group of people that are having a similar experience that you can connect with and that can support each other. So this complete formula consists of 3 main steps, and they are: first is the reflection and intention process, and that happens at the event or the experience that you're having. Something you do either during or right after. And it can be a few different things, but simply it is take some time, do some journaling about the experience that you had at that event, about the things that you want to make changes around in your lives, around the areas that you want to work on. Do a reflection process where you're looking back at that event, you're setting intentions based on those experiences about how you want to show up differently. And then you look forward to how are you going to integrate those into your day-to-day life? What obstacles are going to show up? Who's going to be on your side with this stuff? Who are you going to have difficult conversations with? How might those conversations go? What's your support system for this? The second piece, and I think it's very important to do a lot of this at the same time, is creating action steps. So look at those just ethereal concepts that you want to work on and try to figure out how to bring them into reality as realistic goals that you can start moving towards. Like, let's say, you know, you want to lose weight or something. So like, I want to lose 50 pounds in the next 3 months, or even something a little more, you know, harder to define. It's like, I want to wake up every morning feeling happy, you know? So you can take all of those concepts and turn them into realistic goals, and then start breaking that up into milestones. What does half of that look like? What does a third of that look like? You know, what's the time frame? How can you start moving towards that? And then steps, daily or weekly steps that you can take to get you closer to that every day. That begins to build your momentum, your motivation around whatever your goal is. The third piece, and I think this is the most important piece, is the accountability and support system that you put into place. And to me, this also happens at the event. The people that you went and had that experience with are going to be your best support system for integrating those changes into your life, because they all are having the same experience and trying to do the same thing. So whatever world you came from before, these people are all your new environment that can help you anchor in these experiences into your daily life. So find a way to connect with these people on an ongoing basis. Maybe every week, every month, something like that. Have a support group, do a mastermind, do a study group, something where you're able to connect with these people and talk about your successes and your failures and your challenges and ask for support and get accountability. Accountability is key, because if it's just a promise to yourself, I mean, I know from experience, so much easier for me to renegotiate with myself than it is to renegotiate with someone else. So having that accountability and that support ongoing is key. So next time you're trying to create a permanent change in your life, think about this formula and how you can integrate it into whatever personal growth practice you're working on, who might support you, what that might look like. And this will help you create lasting change in your life. Thank you very much.